Hi, I'm Adam C and welcome to my Nissan 350Z. This is a bit of a different video to normal, and the reason I'm with this car is because I'm on my way to the garage to give the car to them. So it had a bit of a slight misfire just before Christmas, and today was actually my first time driving the car, and it still has the misfire. There was no engine management light on, so I couldn't use a code reader to find out what the code was. I did, and it still showed up nothing. So I changed all the spark plugs with a lot of difficulty. It was still misfiring after that. So I unplugged each coil, ignition coil, one at a time. And if when you start the car, it doesn't make a difference if one of them is unplugged, then that's the one that's faulty. But every single one of them, all 6 of them, made a big difference when I reconnected it. So it became a 5-cylinder Focus ST, but rear-wheel drive. So there are still a few things that it could be. It could be an injector, it could be the valve cover gasket, but I basically started cheap and we're working our way up to more expensive things. So I've done everything that I can physically do myself with the limited resources that I have. So now I am on my way to the garage to drop it off. And the garage in question is where I keep my other 2 cars, and I've got a few items in my Nissan that I'll be fitting to them whilst I'm there. So let me show you what I've got in the boot. Yes, I park under a tree. So in here, I've got this box of headlights, 2 Lucas lenses for the Cobra. I've also got my brand new Motorlita steering wheel to finish off my MGB. I went for the special order thick rim dark wood effect. It looks amazing. And in these boxes, I've got Legacy Legends new mugs. I've just picked up a batch of 3 of them, and you can use Adam 10 to get 10% off your order as ever, because I can offer you a discount for all of these mugs. There are so many incredible designs, all Le Mans or Heritage Race inspired. Lovely. Adam 10 for 10% off your order. There are hundreds of designs to choose from. Oh, there's a cow over there. Lovely. But this video is, as you know, talking about a car that I bought that I didn't tell anyone about. In many videos, both myself and yourselves have joked about the way that this car looks. Does it remind you of anything? Perhaps something of a different manufacturer, a different drivetrain, a completely different engine, but vitally a very similar car. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, you guessed it, I bought a Ford StreetKa, or StreetKa, or StreetKa. I don't yet know how it is pronounced. So in 2003, Ford brought out 2 variants of their popular Ka model, the Sport Ka and the Street Ka. The Sport Ka was the hardtop, just with the wider track and stiffer suspension and a sportier version, and then the Street Ka was a convertible version of that. It had a manual convertible roof, whereas obviously the Nissan 350Z has an automatic one. However, my electric roof doesn't work at the moment, so the similarities are adding up. So the Street Ka and the Sport Ka had a 1.6 litre 8-valve Duratec Ford engine, providing about 94 brake horsepower. They were obviously front-wheel drive, and they came in 2 versions. They came in the luxury and just the basic version. The luxury had 16-inch 6-spoke alloys. Now these are 18-inch, but these are 6-spoke as well, raised forged alloys. Apparently this actual car didn't come with them, but the 350Z also had 2 variants. They had the standard and the GT. The GT 350Z had heated leather seats. The luxury Ford StreetKa had heated leather seats. The GT pack had Bose sound system with a subwoofer behind the seats. The StreetKa luxury edition had speakers behind the seats. I think you can see where this is going. It's a bit of a comparison video. Obviously the styling of the 2 cars are very obvious. The launch model of the 350Z Roadster was in blue. This is Daytona blue. And the launch model of the Ka, the Street Ka, was also blue. I believe it was Ford's French blue. I'm not sure how many 350Z Roadsters were produced, but Ford produced 37,000 of their Street Kas. So they're reasonably popular, but they're still in a niche market. I was going to badge the Street Ka up to look like a 350Z. Obviously, we've already got the front lights. The rear is very similar with the sweeping light over the rear arch. So I was going to put the Nissan badges on it, and the plan for the car was for me to introduce a few videos pretending that I was in my 350Z. Hi, I'm Adam C and welcome to my Nissan 350Z. Oh. And just see how many people noticed. Obviously a few people have noticed on the dashboard I've got a Ford StreetKa model car. I have also got a 350Z model in 143. In fact, all the cars I've owned, I own in the 143rd scale as well. But that was a bit of a running joke, and I bought that around the same, in fact no, my girlfriend bought that for me around the same time that I bought the StreetKa, and I put it on there as a homage. So that was going to be the running joke, and then I was eventually going to compare the two cars side by side and just show you what the differences and the similarities are. But that never actually happened, as you know. That was going to happen around springtime last year. In fact, it was January last year, over a year ago, that I bought this Ford StreetKa. So I was looking around the classifieds, they're about £1,000, sometimes a bit less, to get the luxury in blue specific. I wanted to make it look as much like my 50Z as possible. So I found one just down the road, and its price was at the upper end of my budget, which was £985. This was whilst I was looking at the advert on Auto Trader. And whilst I was looking at the advert, they actually reduced the price by £100 to £885. These two pictures were taken 7 minutes apart from each other, so £885 it was. The car had 73,000 miles, so I went with my girlfriend Chloe to go have a look at it. Part of the plan was to pretend that I was buying the car for my girlfriend, mostly because I was a little bit embarrassed to say that I was buying it for myself. So that's what I did. So Chloe test drove the car as well as myself. I even parked my Nissan next to the Ford StreetKa. It's not the first time I've done that, but it was great to have it parked next to the car that I would eventually own, and all seemed fairly good. However, it had a bit of a squeaky belt, but they promised that they would change that for us. But otherwise it just had a few age-related marks, and they said that they would replace the front tyres as well. Now, Ford StreetKas are known for the front tyre wearing unevenly, I should say, because the suspension isn't the best setup in the world. Another thing they're known for is a rusty fuel filler cap, or just underneath it. 350Zs are known for rusty arches, especially the rear. Mine's actually pretty okay, but I went away. I didn't buy it there and then, but later on, without Chloe knowing, I phoned them up, did a deal. I think I got it for $785 in the end, or something like that, with the new tyres, the new belts, and they cleaned up a little bit, and I went to pick it up. So I went to pick it up on my way to Chloe's house, and the plan was to completely surprise her with it, because she was going to be insured on it as well, and maybe drive it to work every now and again. But on the way to hers, I noticed that the steering was no longer straight. You need to turn slightly to the left, or quite a lot to the left, in order for the car to point forward. So obviously there was a tracking issue, but there's also a knocking noise from the front end, like the front suspension unit. So something had happened whilst they replaced the front tyres. So I was a little bit annoyed at that, but I still managed to get it to Chloe's house, and to surprise her, it was evening, with the car. And here is her reaction to seeing me with the pathetic little Ford outside her door. Hello.
Finally! Oh my god. You bought it! What?
She was overwhelmed. It was a great thing to see. I was excited to put that on Instagram and show the world the reaction when I eventually did reveal the car. Little did I know that would be over a year later. Now, the following morning, I had to wake up and drive the car to work. I got to the car and it was completely dead. The battery had died. I mean, yes, that's fine. Maybe it had a bit of a dodgy battery. It seemed fine when I drove it, but maybe they charged it just before I arrived. I don't know. But we didn't have any jump leads, and no one in Chloe's neighbourhood. I knocked on doors, I asked drivers why no one seemed to have jump leads, or no one seems to want to be late for work to jump my car for me. So we both tried bump starting the car. Imagine me and my girlfriend in, I don't know, our work outfits trying to push this pathetic little Ford to bump start it. It wouldn't happen. So I had to call the AA. They recovered the vehicle. I drove it to work, and whilst at work I actually did a battery test, and it told me to replace the battery. So the battery was on its way out as well. On retrospect, I think it was partially my fault. Obviously the battery was already on its way out, but the Ford StreetKa doesn't have an automatically turning on interior light. It's got an interior light behind the two seats. That's the only interior light it has, and you have to manually turn it on and off. It doesn't come on when you open and close the door. So maybe I forgot to turn it off when getting out the car because it was evening. I don't know, but that might have been what happened. So I had to give the car back to the dealer for them to sort the problems out, which they agreed that they would. Now a month passed, a whole month, with a bit of poor communication and not much happened. It seems like, well, what they were telling me is they were having difficulties finding out what was wrong with the car. I didn't know what was going on. I didn't know when I'd get the car back, and I was spending a lot of money on tax and insurance without using the car. And eventually they called up and saying they couldn't sort it out. They'd happily buy back the car from me and then do with it what they wanted. And that's what happened to it. I gave it back. It was no longer my car. They gave me a full refund, and I even called up the insurance company, explained what had happened. They gave me a refund from the year, including the month that I didn't drive the car, because they understood that I wasn't using it, which is very kind of them. So I wasn't put down by this at all. I still wanted to do the 350Z / Ford StreetKa thing. So I looked around for even more. So this was about March time that this happened. I found one around Brooklands area for about £1,000. It all looks good around the exterior of the car, apart from a scuff down the side of it. The rear locking glove box, I could call it, the door was off, so it wasn't rear or locking, and the glove box in the front, the door was broken on that, which is common on the StreetKa. Also, another similarity I've just thought of, 350Zs have rear locking glove boxes behind the seats as well. Thinking about it, did Ford copy Nissan, or did Nissan actually copy Ford? Because the StreetKa came out in 2003, whereas the 350Z Roadster came out in 2004. So actually this is just a rear-wheel drive V6 280 brake horsepower Ford StreetKa. I have a weird interest in cars. Anyway, so yes, I found one in Brooklands. I test drove it, and it had quite a substantial misfire that I noticed when driving it. Wow. Even more similarities between the 350Z Roadster and the StreetKa. They both misfire. So he said he'd sort it out, but I wasn't overly sold on the car, especially for £1,000 that he wouldn't really budge on. So a few days later I found another one which was closer to London. This one was about £700, and the exterior just looked generally untidy. The wheels were curved, the wings looked like they had been glued on. There was some glue residue underneath the wings, which is a bit sus, and the rear screen was all glazed. That needed refurbing. It's like got a plastic perspex screen. It is snowing currently, and on the idle of that StreetKa, it sounded like it had a bit of a misfire as well. I know I'm obsessing over misfires, but it's been quite the bane of my life at the moment, so I wasn't overly impressed with that one. They even offered to drop the price to £500, and I still didn't buy it. Maybe in retrospect I should have, but I'm very glad I didn't, because soon after that the country went into the lockdown, and I would have been stuck with a £500 Ford StreetKa throughout lockdown with nothing to do with it and not being able to sell it or do anything. So it was probably a blessing in disguise. So later on I did consider buying Car Throttle's Ford StreetKa. They actually bought one, did it up, and planned to sell it on. So I had a conversation with Alex, and I said that I would be potentially interested in buying it when they were finished with it, but I lost my job. I thought maybe now's not the right time to buy a car, so I couldn't buy it. It was probably another blessing in disguise, because theirs seems to be problematic as well. So looking at the history of the 3 StreetKas that I looked at, the first one, the one I actually bought and owned for a month, doesn't exist anymore. I mean, I doubt anyone's put a personalised plate on it, but the number plate just comes up with nothing on DVLA, government websites, nothing. So they probably just scrapped it. The second one, it seems to be doing all right. So the misfire is probably solved and someone's owning it and driving it. They're putting on 3,000 miles a year. And the third one, the MOT history looks problematic. Looks like they had to spend a lot of money on that one. So that was another blessing in disguise. So that is why I do not own a Ford StreetKa. And that was the secret car that I bought without telling anyone. I was really looking forward to revealing it and playing a lot of jokes on you using that car just driving it around and maybe even dubbing some V6 noises on it. I've still got the Nissan badge, I've still got the StreetKa model. It's kind of in my history, but I don't include it in my history. I've still got a lineup of 5 cars that I've owned: the MGB, then the TVR Wedge, then my Cobra replica, then the RX-8, and then the 350Z. The StreetKa doesn't really fall into my lineup in my mind anyway. So I'm going to drive my 350Zs to Universal Classic Cars, which is where they're going to have a look at the engine and see what's the problem. But if it's too much of an issue, I don't really fancy spending too much money on this car, because as you might know, the roof doesn't work either. So to sort out the roof and the engine issues would be probably half, if not more, the value of the whole car. So who knows, this might be the last or one of the last videos of the 350Z on my channel. In the meantime, if anyone's got any maroon 370Z Roadsters in manual for sale, let me know for completely unrelated circumstances. So now that the sun has come out, I do hope you enjoyed that video, a little behind the scenes footage of my buying and selling of an awful car. And if this car does survive, keep an eye out on the channel, because I might do it again. Who knows? I might end up buying another one and sneaking it in there without even telling. I could still do that. So whenever I'm starting a video in the leather interior of a 2-seater sports car, have a look closely, see if they are blue ovals or Nissan logos. We don't know. So follow me on Instagram for updates about the cars that I buy, the cars that I drive, the shows that I go to once they're back on, and everything else behind the scenes. And you can use Adam10 on legacylegends.co.uk to get 10% off your mugs if you fancy some lovely motor racing inspired merchandise. But for now, thanks for watching.